Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We have a great guest today. This is Joel Varty. He is the Chief Technology Officer of AgilityCMS, where he's spent over 20 years helping brands ditch clunky monolithic systems for flexible AI digital platforms. So he recently led Agility to a win at CMS Idol 2025 in Montreal with a live Gen AI powered demo that had the crowd on their feet. So when Joel's not building the future of content management, Joel coaches high school football and directs musical theater because he believes the best lessons in leadership, teamwork, and reading the room happen both on and off the field. So thank you for joining us, Joel.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Justine.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions today. I'm excited to pick your brain. So let's just get right into it. So you've helped grow this business over the past 20 plus years, probably at this point, right? So take us back to the beginning. What's the story of how you first got started and what was your first real sale?
Yeah, gosh, you got to go back, probably back 2007, 2008, back when Agility wasn't even a SaaS company as much as we were an agency and just kind of really picking up steam. We landed Cineplex, which was a huge deal for us at the time. But I can't say it was my sale. Sales is really a team sport. And I think it was about really building trust between leaders. And we were lucky at the time that someone from a previous company at an executive level had moved to Cineplex and kind of brought us along. The previous sale was a good one and a big one, but this was a really big coordinated effort to kind of bring this on. And of course, there was a lot of work after you make the sale. Like that's when the work really gets started to kind of make sure that that's going to be a customer for a long time. I'm happy to say there's still a happy customer of us now, which has been a continual effort, and it's more of a partnership than anything else to make sure that we're able to meet their needs, and they're still a great customer.
Amazing. So looking at your business today, what does growth mean to you? Is it revenue, market share, team size, something else?
Yeah, well, we're a bootstrap company. And so I think we've tried to stay away too much from like the startup kind of metrics that lead towards things like venture capital or whatever. Obviously, growth is really important to us. All of our growth is driven by customer revenue. So, I mean, taking care of our existing customers is always job one. So reducing churn, we want churn to be zero. We want all of our customers to be happy. We want all of our customers to know that we want them to be our customer forever. Which is not always a clear message, I think, from some organizations. But then in terms of growth, we've been relying pretty much on inbound. And that's been enough, for our growth so far. And that's going to keep us growing at the current rate. But I think to accelerate that, we're looking more at outbound strategies and really having a sales focus across the whole organization. Not necessarily a sales focus, but a customer focus. Having every single person in our organization be customer focused, not necessarily customer facing, although we try to get people in front of customers as much as we can, but to be customer focused and to have that sort of finding ways to provide value mentality. That's a much easier way for us to kind of grow and sell into, especially in enterprise B2B.
Mm-hmm. Well, and on that topic, so you really kind of mastered the inbound, which is right. That's amazing to have. So how are you encouraging your team to be more proactive in, say, hunting or proactively reaching out to people that you may not be doing business with yet?
Yeah, I think so. A few quarters ago, we actually added a new core value, which was a huge deal for our organization. And that was always be listening. And that was with a customer focus to always be listening, find ways to listen to customers and to understand what their needs are. And are we meeting those needs? Are they the right customers that we can meet needs for? And then beyond that, to kind of look in the marketplace for those customers. And our outbound strategy is just more of an extension of that. Where are the best segments of customers that we're able to meet? We're pretty horizontal right now, but what are the verticals that we're best able to meet their needs? What are the regions? What are their pain points? And have everybody be able to speak that language. And I think for me, I actually had a hard time with that initially because I think of myself as more of an engineer, more of a technical person. I'm not in sales. I grew up on a farm when, the fertilizer salesman would come across and my dad would always get upset trying to get this guy off the property. So that was my thought. of like a sales guy. But when I get on the phone with a customer or a potential customer and we just have a conversation, I can just be curious. And I think the always be listening with that curiosity really can open a lot of doors for you, because you're just trying to provide value and asking questions and giving people a good ear sometimes.
Makes sense. Thank you. Yeah. So, well, what does your vision look like for sales in the next 3 to 5 years? Do you have targets, or what does that look like?
Yeah, well, we got growth targets. I think you know, we always have an eye to profitability. So the company's been profitable for a while. And that's, I think, one of the most important things in a bootstrapped company is that you don't go on the razor's edge for, if you're trying to sort of put all the money back in the company, you have to have this buffer. And what we want to do is keep that buffer at a certain level while we grow 20%, 30%, get that up to 40. I think if we can get up to 40 to 50% growth, that would be, pretty crazy, because it's enterprise is tough. But I think that we can get there if we just keep following those core values. I don't see anything that can stand in our way.
Awesome. So, all right. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you committed to that vision in terms of that outbound strategy?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. You get different ideas of how long you need to test something. So how many bullets do you fire in outbound before you fire a cannon? I'm not sure if you've heard that analogy before, but you want to test some things and you need to put enough money and time and effort into those tests to make sure you get a result. But you could infinitely test different things. So at some point, you have to pull the trigger, and maybe you don't go, as I say, maybe you don't invest all of your dollars into that one big thing, but you also can't spray and pray. So we are, over the next couple quarters, we really want to narrow down our focus on what our, we've got a pretty good idea of the ICP, a best customer profile, and really trying to pick. We've never really picked a vertical market before, so we're picking some markets and some regions. We're probably going to focus North America at the very least in terms of regioning right now. So dialing that in and not letting the tests go for too long, but making sure that they have enough kind of oomph behind them so that we can get some good results and understand, if we're winning. And really just having all hands on deck for that. So like, we're committed across the whole company. We're hiring for this, hiring director level positions for this, which is a huge deal in a small company like ours,
Amazing. Awesome. So now when you look at, okay, so you have a very robust inbound lead strategy. That's amazing. So what do you find that's working best to generate leads now? And what is kind of what are the biggest challenges to like today?
Yeah. And I don't know that we're that unique in the challenges. Everyone is finding challenges with the fact that they're getting less organic website traffic from places like Google. Google's just sending fewer traffic because people are getting, they're going to ChatGPT. They're using AI to get answers right within Google, whether it's in Gemini or just in the top of the search thing that you see there, that summary. But the people that do come to your website are getting to that homepage and they're ready to commit. They're ready to commit to at least becoming a lead. And so our inbound has evolved quite a bit with that understanding that maybe you're not getting as much traffic in, but our content has been good enough because we've had good SEO, we've had a good content strategy throughout. We've got lots of great videos out there on things like YouTube. People can learn a lot about our product without even talking to us. And once they get to our website, on the homepage now has to convert. Whereas before, it's like, what's this customer journey that you're going to go through on your website? That still has to be there, but most people are ready to go. So in terms of inbound, you have to have had good SEO. You have to have a good enough how-tos on your website, documentation, things that can teach not only people how to use your product, but also teaching AI how to talk about your product in its summaries and things like that when people are having conversations with a ChatGPT or a Claude saying, hey, how do I get content on my website? How do I rebuild this web platform? How do I build an app that has content? You need to be able to be there with that content, and so that you're getting that traffic driven to your website and they're ready to go.
Got it. Now, so that must mean that once you are getting those leads, because they're so, properly filtered down, your conversion rate must be really high.
Yeah, it's been tricky to understand that, like, with so much fewer MQLs coming in, we're still hitting our sales targets. And our close rate from SQL to close has gone up significantly. Partially because as an organization, more experience, you just get better at selling what you're doing. And I think the market is getting just more sophisticated around the kind of composable API type services offering that you see in SaaS now. But also, I think that there's an evolution that happens with AI now where we're just better at managing the data and better at managing the customer journey. And so that, every organization, I think, has to evolve that way in terms of being more efficient with what it does and providing more power to each of their employees working especially in their MarTech stack, to make sure that they can be as effective and efficient as possible.
Cool. Love it. All right. So sounds like you got a pretty good operation and has been going pretty well for a while, but every business has a messy middle, right? Can't be perfect all the time. Maybe it can.
Yeah.
If it can be, wow, you're one of the few. I mean, there are some businesses that literally have never had any sales challenges, or at least nothing that's remarkable. But if you're like most very successful, profitable companies, there's things you had to learn through. So can you share a time when a deal, hire, or strategy didn't go as planned, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I mean, I have so many of those stories over 20 years. Oh my goodness, so many times. I mean, there's some of them are success stories where you had a customer that was, you thought was going to leave, thought was going to churn, and you're able to turn them around. Those end up often being your strongest customers. But we've had sales to new customers where, maybe in the middle of onboarding, we've had them, maybe a competitor come around and offer them for a free offering. We've had competitors undercut us with free offerings. We'll give you the service for free, or for maybe a 2-year deal for free, just to steal the customer. And so that's really tough. Because you spent all that money, maybe built a proof of concept, you've invested in this customer, you've set up what you hope is going to be a long-term partnership. Our average customer lifetime is in excess of 10 years. So to lose a customer in the first year is really, really hard. And as with most enterprise SaaS, we aren't profitable on customers for quite a while. It takes a while for us to earn that back. And we do that by building trust. It's really tough when you have the rug pulled out from under you. So that happens from time to time. It doesn't happen that often, but it hurts when it does. But you try to learn from it. You try to make sure that it can't just be a transactional relationship. Even though, they're paying for a service, you want them to want to work with you. And I think that's the difference between like an enterprise, a true enterprise service, and like a freemium service, or even like someone who's on, we're on the pro package. We pay $100 a month and we get whatever. You're really not, we don't want those kind of customers, not because we don't want the customer, but because we don't necessarily think that relationship is something we can provide as much value to. So that's, you have to be prepared to say no to a potential customer because they're not a fit. And that's a hard lesson. It takes a while.
Yeah, definitely. You can't help everyone. I'm sure you can help a lot of people, but you can't help everyone, right?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. So if you look into the next year, 2026, 2027, where do you see the most opportunity, and where do you see the most risk, especially with all this AI stuff? I'm sure there's tons of opportunity, tons of risk. What do you predict?
Yeah. I feel the market last year kind of hunkered down and kind of waited out what's going to happen with AI, what's happening politically, kind of trying to feel things out. And some companies are hurting right now. International relations are different. The world is politically a different place, but we still got to do business. And we still got to understand how we're going to have business relationships that work. And if you can provide trust with the customer, or provide trust across, like sometimes we don't just work with one customer and we're not the only vendor. We'll bring in other vendors as well. When you can build trust across an ecosystem that provides a complete 100% whole product solution, that's how you can really grow. So we're extending our partnerships with other tech companies and other folks that help implement our solution. But then also we're really close on following individuals that go from company to company that can help us build trust with the organizations that we want to go after. So there's a bunch of different things we're looking at. One of the sayings is, if a company isn't doing well, then what do they do? Or if they're like, maybe they're not spending a ton on, certain kinds of things, but maybe they do want to spend a little bit more money on things like digital marketing or beefing up their website, or maybe they need a rebrand on something. And even if a company's sales aren't doing that great, or they're having some insecurity, or maybe they've had to do some layoffs, the saying of, if you can't go out fishing today, you can always fix your nets. So I think that we try to be there for our customers and understanding that as early as you can in a relationship. So as soon as we talk to a customer, we try to empathize with where they're at in their business, and that can really help. So we've had really good results with that. And sometimes the sales cycles are a little longer, because sometimes you might build a relationship with someone who they're not ready to buy yet, but you can still keep talking to them and keep helping them work through their problem. Those end up being really strong customers once you do land them.
Yeah, absolutely. All these analogies, we can definitely tell you are a football coach.
Absolutely.
They make perfect sense, though. I love them. All right. So in terms of, so you are on the technology side, but you're also very, as we've discussed even before this podcast, you're very up to speed and know exactly what's going on with the sales side, which is awesome. Usually people, and this is not always, but sometimes we see people that are very strong technically. There are gaps in sales, and then people that are really effective in sales, there are gaps in technology. But you seem to have your fingerprints on everything, which is amazing. So how do you and your team approach sales effectiveness training and development, both for yourself and for your team?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't think it's a thing you can ever spend enough effort on in training. You can never spend enough time reviewing sales calls to see, what did you say there? What was the response to this? How was the customer responding there when you said this, that kind of thing. And then you can also never spend enough time getting ready for your next call, to be ready with a proof of concept for them, or to show them a demo that's going to be more tuned to what their business is. And so what I've learned is most about how to kind of pick your spots. It's very similar to sports. You can't go 1,000% all the time if you're playing football. You just can't. You try to train to get to that much, but you have to pick your spots where you can make the most effort at the most impact and most impactful time. And I think learning that within your sales playbook is one of the most important things. And it almost becomes a sixth sense. And I wish there was more data to back this up. Maybe there is. But for me, it's kind of an instinctual thing about, okay, I have this feeling with this customer that we're not necessarily on the same page with them. We need to get on a call. We need to just talk through some things, or we need to show them something more than we've been showing them, which means that we need to do more work to kind of earn their trust and to show them value. And you kind of get a feel for that. The better you can spread that around your organization, to spread that feeling around. I know my CEO, John Voight, he is so good with that. He has the best instincts that he's honed over years regarding sales and customer success. And then, so the more you can kind of train your organization about what you've learned for what works for your business, I think is the best thing you can do. And I guess it comes down to everyone kind of being a player coach. One of our core values is learn it and teach it. I don't think you can really learn something until you've tried to teach someone else how to do that. So working with our team, that's something that we try to sort of push across the whole organization.
Amazing. And no doubt you're super successful. The team is really ramping up. Their closing rate, they're happy with their closing ratios. They're having lots of conversations. They're moving to next step of meetings. Those meetings are getting closed and effectively qualified, and you're probably surpassing your sales targets already at this point.
Yeah, well, you're never happy though, right? You're never satisfied. You're always like, yeah, we're able to grow it. And okay, and you always have your goals, but then you always have these stretch targets. So I think it's a real balance that you have to strike between meeting a goal and always have that hunger to get more. But if you set your targets too high, you'll get to this point where you're in this, everything's almost, we almost hit our target, but it's okay because we set our targets too high. And then you never really win. And teams need to win. But you don't want to set the targets so low so that you're not even playing at the same playing field that you want to get to. So I think that's the balance that you try to strike, where we're never quite satisfied, but we want to be able to win on a regular basis.
Absolutely. So, well, what are you looking for when you hire salespeople? And what are some of the greatest challenges that you've experienced hiring salespeople? Because salespeople can be one of the hardest to hire, right? They look good in an interview, they look great on their resume, and then and they show up to their sales meetings, and they're agreeing to the teachings that you're and the guidance and the technique that you're giving them, and then when they have to actually go and do the behavior, which can sometimes be uncomfortable in the field, that's when they kind of stop. So then oftentimes bad hires can be three times their salary, right? If they're not producing, not to mention all the time, money, resources, you're putting in having to replace them. So, like, what are some things that you look for in salespeople and some challenges you faced?
You give me heart palpitations just going through all these things here, Justine. Yeah, no, for sure. It's one of the toughest things. I think first of all, you need to give yourself permission to make a mistake and understand if you have made a bad hire, if it's not the right person, you're not doing anybody a favor by keeping that person on your team, right? It's just the wrong thing. And the longer you have the wrong person on your team, they're not the right person on the bus. It's extra weight. No one's happy. You can't have that. So understanding that getting the right person on the bus, the right team on the bus with you is the most important thing. Now you're at a starting point. What I have noticed lately in the last year or so, everyone's resumes look amazing. Everyone's using AI to build the best resumes. Everyone's using AI to kind of build their best scripts for how they're going to start wooing me when they first get on a call. I find that when I get it down to those last two or three candidates, and I'll always have this is the top person in my mind. As soon as I meet them in person and we really have a conversation about who you are as a person and what you're going to bring culturally to our team. We're a remote team, but we really rely on that in-person interview. I almost always flip it and find it's like, oh, my top candidate isn't who I thought they were. And then that has worked out really well where you are continue to be critical, bring other people to the room on that. So never rely on one person to make a hire because that's just hanging someone out to dry. I don't even do that to myself. Always have, you don't want a committee, but you need to have a few people that are helping you out on the hire to make sure that you're getting a variety of opinions on there. There are tools, things like disc profiles. There's a bunch of hiring tools that you can use. People are pretty good at kind of working the system. People are gaming systems like forever, especially younger folks. They grew up in school gaming the system. So you need to get an idea of who they are as a person and understand what they're going to be like when the going gets tough and it gets down to the wire. And who do you want to have in the trenches with you when it's like, hey, we need to do the right thing for this potential customer. We need to bring them on board and understand and show them value. And that's going to be hard because it's going to be a lot of work to do, put in some hours to get that done. Who do you want to have on with you on that? And so, it's kind of a gut check. It's very similar to like everything is sports to me, but from a coaching point of view, when you're trying to, determine the starting lineup for your team, it's a gut check about who you want, who is going to perform at that moment. A lot of things in life, you get that one chance, on a call. Sometimes you get that one chance on a call to say the right thing. And you want to have the person who's going to do that at the moment. Some people just do it and it's no problem. And some people, they get super stressed out about it. So you want that person who's clutch, we call it. You want someone who's clutch, which can be tricky. And it takes a bit of a gut check to find that person.
Yeah, not to mention, the last few years for sure, since COVID, there was a boom on people really kill it in sales on digital. But now people have, especially we see with kind of the younger generations, like no offense, but they are they focus too much energy on digital sales and digital outreach. But when it comes to actually having that conversation with a prospect or a high-end buyer, they don't feel comfortable. They're anxious. They're afraid to have these conversations. So though they're coachable, trainable, mentorable, it's just they're facing some type of anxiety that's preventing them from actually asking the deep questions that they need to ask to get the information in order to determine, the best solution. They're not able to have that effective and efficient communication because they have been relying so much on online outreach. And that is, that in itself is exhausting, outreach online. Sure, there's tons of different ways to generate leads, but if you can't have a buyer focused conversation, verbally what does that look like? How does that show up in, especially when you're dealing with sophisticated buyers, multiple decision makers, complicated selling cycles, competing agendas? You got to know how to have these conversations.
Yeah, and the really good sales folks keep it simple, right? They always have a clear message. They're always working to build trust. So it doesn't matter if they're on with a procurement person who's never going to use the product. It doesn't matter if they're on with IT who's going to try and find holes in every little thing that you do. It doesn't matter if they're on with a CFO who is like, show me the ROI. I need the bottom line. I don't care about the features. I care about the numbers of the cost. Good people who build trust, they will close on the first call. The first call that they have, if they will build a champion from whoever that is, and I'm looking for that person. I want them to build, when I have a first interview with somebody and I meet them in person, I want them to make me their champion, right? They need to win me over without wooing me beyond, capacity. So it's a real delicate thing, and you can coach it. You can coach someone to get better, but you can't coach someone to be trustworthy. And that building trust, I think, is the deepest core value that you want to find in a sales rep.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. I agree. So thinking about your own leadership then, what has been the hardest adjustment that you've had to make as the company has grown?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I used to hide in the technology. It's especially when the going gets tough. It's really easy when you're a software developer or if you're a technology focused person to kind of, no, don't worry about the sales thing. Let someone else worry about that. I'm just going to dig deep into product. We're going to make the product better. And if we make the product better, then our sales will just take care of itself. That's putting your head in the sand. Your product has to be great. Your product has to be great before you even start trying to sell it. That's what I believe. I don't believe you should try to sell something that you don't have. But beyond that, as a leader in an organization, your job is sales. And it took me a long time to understand that that is my job to do, and that we will be more successful if myself as a leader can get on at the right time. I'm not on every sales call. I can't do that. There's not enough time. But I try to get on strategically at that right time when it's the key critical moment. Maybe it's at that turning point when someone needs to understand what's going to happen. We're a smaller company that's going against bigger companies. And I'll get on a call and I'll say, hey, look, you can go with the bigger company. They have more customer success reps than we do. They have more developers than we do. But I guarantee you, they will not get on the phone with you when you have a problem and try to understand who you are and what you need as much as we will. We have that human connection. And so I think there's a time when you just need to be super frank and honest, sometimes to your detriment, because a customer might listen to that and go, yeah, okay, yeah, that's not right for me. I don't want to work for that company. But every once in a while, and these are the customers that stick with us forever, is that someone will say, yeah, I want to work with that guy. He's totally upfront with me, and he's going to represent my interests as best as anything. And so that has worked well, but it has been a hard time learning that the balance of that, and to understand that sales is my job as much as anything else.
Definitely. Not to also to mention, not only, if you're effective in sales, that's one thing, but to lead sales is completely different than being an individual contributor. Like
That's right.
being a coach is much, let's say you're very effective in sales and then say you're promoted to a leadership role. Like there's not a lot of, if any, sales leadership training. So what happens is you may have been, this kind of keeping you out of the situation, but we see this a lot. You may have been really effective in sales, get promoted to a leadership role, and then it's scary because you're not just coaching, you're training, supervising, mentoring. You're dealing with people's emotions, their values, connecting their behavior to what's important to them, not just to the company. So yeah, it's interesting to lead sales teams, as I'm sure you've noticed.
Not all the best players are great coaches. Some of
Right.
them are, and some of them
Mhm.
aren't. And you have to understand, sometimes it's best just, if you have someone who's great in sales, sometimes it's best to leave them there. Hey, you're great in sales. You are not a sales leader. Some people are just instinctive about what's the right thing to say at the right time, but They couldn't teach that to anybody else, and they couldn't
Right.
see that in someone else because they're so competitive. Sometimes the greatest sales folks they'll compete over everything. And so they don't necessarily make great sales leaders because they're competing with the people on their team that they're leading. But every once in a while, you see that person who is a natural leader, who wants to see others succeed and really has a fit for, finding ways to help other folks do that thing that's needed at that moment. And they're really good at saying, what can I do for you right now? What does my team need from me right now? Whereas I see a lot of leaders, what can I get out of my team today? What does my team have for me today? That's not serving your team. And a leader I don't think you should lead from the front. I don't think you should be trying to be the best on your team at something. But by leading from the rear as a servant leader is something that's a lifelong kind of sort of learning that kind of brings you toward that success.
Definitely. Well, that being said, if you could give one piece of advice for an Ontario business owner or leader who's just hit a growth ceiling, what would that be?
Stick with it. If you don't have a good plan, make a plan. Sometimes you just got to keep grinding through it, and don't let your emotions get the best of you in the good or the bad times. You know what I mean? So being steady growth is hard to see. You often have to look at that over multiple quarters. So maybe you had a bad quarter, maybe you had a great quarter. Don't get too high, don't get too low. So I think that thing really has to balance out. Keeping your eye on the prize on the long term while trying to do what's right for your business at this moment is probably one of the hardest things. Building a community can help too. Other businesses, either in your area or in, I've found that I've learned the most I joined an organization that has my competitors in there, and we go in as mostly technology folks, not all, but we talk, and there's no sales. We're not trying to market to each other. We're open and frank. We'll share learnings and things like that. And this is with competitors that, I'm competing against. But there's so much to learn, and our market is so big, it's big enough for all of us, right? And so there's so much to learn from everybody. And I think that's, keep your eye on the prize and keep learning and keep grinding.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Well, hey, it was a pleasure. This was super insightful. I always love to mix the insight of technology and sales because, like I said, not a lot of people have, such a high pedigree of understanding of both. So it's been great. So I really appreciate your time, Joel. Hope to see you back soon.
Thanks for having me on.